Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when you wake up and feel like you're drifting. Like no matter how hard you push, nothing makes sense anymore. You smile on the outside, but inside you're questioning, who am I? Where am I going? What's the point? And in that moment you think you're broken, you think you failed. But hear me now, feeling lost is not the end. It's the signal, the spark, the exact wake-up call that your life is demanding more from you. And if you listen, if you act, that feeling of being lost will become the very force that transforms everything. Stay with me because what I'm about to share could turn your confusion into your greatest breakthrough. And here's a full-length motivational speech draft in the requested style, about 1,000 words, no headings, no mention of his name, no ending statements. And when you feel lost in life, when you wake up in the morning and there's this heaviness sitting on your chest, when you question who you are, where you're going, and whether any of this even matters, understand this: you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are in a moment that is calling you to rise. Feeling lost isn't a curse. It's a signal. It's the universe shaking you awake, telling you that the path you've been on is no longer enough for who you are becoming. And the truth is, every single person who has ever created something extraordinary has walked through a season of being lost. It's in that wilderness, when the map doesn't make sense, when the GPS of your life says recalculating, that you are being forced to stop and actually look inside. Because the answers you're searching for aren't out there in someone else's plan, in someone else's approval, or in someone else's version of success. They're in you. And when you feel lost, the first thing you must do is stop trying to find the entire road. ED, you don't need the whole staircase. You don't need the next 10 years mapped out. You just need one step, one bold action that brings clarity. Most people stay paralyzed because they think they need the perfect plan, the flawless vision. But clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from moving. It comes from doing something that wakes up your spirit and reconnects you to your own power. And if you're lost, do something different than what you've been doing. Break the pattern. If you've been drowning in the same routine, take yourself to a new environment. Go to the gym and push your body until your mind stops screaming and your spirit starts breathing. Take a trip, even a small one, to shake up your senses. Call that person you've been avoiding and have the conversation that scares you. Write down the thoughts you've been burying and actually look at them. Movement creates momentum, and momentum creates meaning, and too many people believe they need confidence before they act, but that's backwards. Confidence doesn't precede action. It is the result of it. You must act your way into certainty, not wait for certainty to give you permission to act. Think about it. The moments in your life when you felt most alive, most certain, most unstoppable weren't times when you sat and thought your way into it. They were moments when you leapt before you knew if the net would appear. And when you feel lost, it's easy to drown in comparison. You look at everyone else's highlight reel and assume they've got it figured out. You see the person with the career, the relationship, the body, the lifestyle, and you start believing you're the only one stumbling through the fog. But let me tell you something. They've been lost too. They've had nights staring at the ceiling wondering if they're enough. The difference is at some point they decided to stop letting lostness define them and instead let it refine them. And lostness is feedback. It's not punishment. It's your soul whispering or maybe screaming that the life you've been living is too small for the person you are meant to become. And if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to stop numbing yourself with distractions, with scrolling, with complaining, with blaming, then you'll hear the invitation. The invitation to grow, to stretch, to break free from the cage of certainty and step into the unknown where your true life is waiting. And here's what you do when you feel lost. You choose. You choose one thing you can control right now. You can't control what happened in your past. You can't control what other people think. You can't control the fact that sometimes life throws storms that knock you down. But you can control what you do in this moment. Do you breathe deeply and decide to reset your focus? Or do you keep spiraling in your head? Do you take action that builds your strength? Or do you stay stuck in stories that drain it? And your life changes in the moment you shift from, why is this happening to me, to what is this teaching me? That single shift takes you from victim to creator, from powerless to powerful. If you feel lost, ask better questions. Don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what's the gift hidden in this? Don't ask, why can't I figure it out? Ask, what's one step I can take today to create momentum? The quality of your life will always be determined by the quality of the questions you're brave enough to ask yourself. And sometimes being lost means you've outgrown the version of you that fit into your old life. You're shedding an old identity, an old story, an old way of being, and the in-between feels uncomfortable. That's why it feels like you're floating with no anchor. But don't confuse transition with failure. Don't confuse discomfort with doom. That uneasiness you feel is the stretching of new wings. It's the pain of growth. It's the tearing down of what no longer serves you so that something greater can emerge. And think about the times in your life when you faced uncertainty before. Maybe it was the first time you walked into a new job, or the day you moved to a new city, or when you ended a relationship you knew wasn't right. In those moments, you didn't have all the answers. You probably questioned yourself. But look where you are now. You survived. You grew. You built strength in the storm that you never would have found in calm waters. This moment is no different. And when you feel lost, it's crucial to reconnect with your standards. Not your goals, not your wishes, not your daydreams, but your standards. What do you refuse to tolerate anymore? What level of energy, focus, and commitment will you demand from yourself? Life will give you what you're willing to settle for. Raise your standards and your life will rise with them. And while you're raising your standards, raise your physiology. Get in your body, stand tall, breathe deeply, move with energy. Because if you're waiting to feel good before you move, you'll be waiting forever. Your state controls your story, and your story controls your life. Change your state, and the story you tell yourself about being lost changes instantly. Instead of I'm lost, it becomes I'm searching. Instead of I'm stuck, it becomes I'm in transition. Instead of I'm broken, it becomes I'm becoming. And you may not know the destination yet, but you don't need to. You just need to move with purpose. You need to decide that this lostness will not be wasted. You will not wander aimlessly. You will explore courageously. You will use this season as a forge to create strength, resilience, and clarity like never before. Because one day, when you look back, you'll realize this wasn't the season you were lost. It was the season you were found. And got it. I'll continue seamlessly from where the first part of the speech ended, expanding with another 1,000 words in the same motivational high-energy style. No headings, no conclusion. And when you truly understand that, you stop waiting for the perfect path to show up and you start carving your own. You stop looking outside for someone else to hand you the answers. And you start trusting that the answers are born through the very act of living fully, courageously, and unapologetically. Because you don't find yourself by sitting on the sidelines analyzing your way into clarity. You find yourself by stepping into the arena, covered in dust, sweat, and sometimes even failure, and realizing that every swing, every stumble, every scar is shaping you into who you're meant to be. And think about a time when you didn't know how you were going to get through something. Maybe you felt overwhelmed. Maybe you felt like you didn't have the strength. Maybe you questioned if you had what it takes. But then you kept going. You pushed through. You found resources inside yourself that you didn't even know were there. That is what being lost does. It forces you to dig deeper, to discover strength that was dormant, to wake up potential that would have stayed buried if life had stayed predictable and easy. And so if you're in that place now, if you're walking through the fog, I want you to hear me. This is not the end of your story. This is the ignition point. This is where you get to rewrite the rules, where you decide what's no longer acceptable, where you choose to align your life with the fire inside you instead of the expectations around you. And let me be real with you. Being lost isn't comfortable. It can feel like you're standing in quicksand while everyone else is running full speed. It can feel like you're the only one who doesn't have a map while the rest of the world D has their destination set. But don't be fooled. Comfort zones are seductive. They whisper to you, stay here, don't move, don't risk, don't leap. But comfort zones kill dreams. Comfort zones keep you small. And sometimes being lost is the only thing that rips you out of that trance and forces you to see that you were meant for more. And the power is in how you respond. You can either drown in the story that you're lost, or you can rise in the decision that you are searching. And searching is powerful. Searching means you're curious, you're alive, you're hungry. Searching means you're not dead inside. It means there's something in you still fighting for more, something in you refusing to settle for mediocrity. That spark, that hunger, that's your compass. And so what do you do with it? You feed it. You take action every single day that reinforces the identity you want to grow into. You don't wait for the vision to be clear before you start. You start, and through that start, the vision becomes clear. Because progress creates clarity, not the other way around. You lift the weight even if you feel weak. You speak your truth even if your voice shakes. You try the new path even if you're not sure where it leads. And through those acts of courage, the fog begins to lift. And the people who create extraordinary lives are not the ones who never felt lost. They're the ones who refuse to stay lost. They're the ones who realize that every detour, every dead end, every failure was feedback pushing them towards something greater. And if you're willing to adopt that mindset, if you're willing to take the pain and transform it into power, then being lost will no longer feel like a curse. It will feel like a calling. And you want to know the real danger? It's not being lost. The real danger is being comfortable in a life that doesn't fulfill you. The real danger is being numb, distraught, acted asleep at the wheel while the years pass by, Being lost at least wakes you up. It jolts you into questioning, into seeking, into fighting for something more. So instead of running from it, embrace it. Lean into it. Let it sharpen you. And while you're in it, build rituals that ground you, because when the external world feels chaotic, you need anchors. Maybe it's starting your day with gratitude, even when you don't feel like it. Maybe it's pushing your body physically so your mind remembers who's in control. Maybe it's journaling the storm of thoughts instead of letting them run laps in your head. Anchors keep you steady while the waves crash, and they remind you that you're not powerless. And another thing you must do when you feel lost is surround yourself with the right voices. Because if you're drowning in negativity, in people who complain, in people who settle, in people who are addicted to their own misery, you will absorb that energy. You'll start believing that being lost is permanent, that you don't have what it takes. But if you put yourself around people who are striving, people who are growing, people who see possibility even in the darkness, that fire will spread to you. Proximity is power. Who you spend time with will either magnify your sense of being lost or ignite your drive to rise above it. And so get honest with yourself. Who are you listening to? Whose standards are you living by? Whose expectations are you carrying? Because maybe part of the reason you feel lost isn't that you don't know who you are. It's that you've been trying to be who everyone else wanted you to be. And that's not alignment. That's suffocation. The moment you decide to strip away the masks, to drop the need for approval, to live your life according to your truth instead of their opinions, the path will begin to clear. And understand this. Identity is not fixed. Who you think you are today is not the final version of you. You can reinvent, you can evolve, you can rise again and again. Being lost gives you the chance to shed the skin that no longer fits and step into a new identity that actually aligns with your vision, your values, and your purpose. And you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to begin. You can decide right now. And most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. If you feel lost because you think you should be further ahead, stop measuring yourself against someone else's timeline. Your journey is unique. Your pace is your own. Instead of obsessing over where you think you should be, focus on who you're becoming in this process, because the person you are building in the fog is far more important than the destination you're racing toward. And think of the seed buried underground. For months, it looks like nothing is happening. To the outside world, it seems dead, lost, buried. But beneath the surface, it's breaking open, it's growing roots, it's preparing for a breakthrough. Then one day it bursts through the soil into the light. That's you. That's this season. Just because you can't see the growth doesn't mean it isn't happening. And so use this time to get stronger. Use it to break the chains of your old limitations. Use it to discover what you're made of. Because when you come out the other side, you won't just find a path, you'll find a deeper, stronger, more unstoppable version of yourself. And absolutely, I'll continue right from where the second part ended, keeping the same flow and style, building another over 1,000 words of motivational speech without headings, without mentioning his name, and without closing statements. And because when you come out the other side, you won't just find a path, you'll find a deeper, stronger, more unstoppable version of yourself. And that's the point. The point is not just to get from A to B. The point is to become someone along the journey who can handle what B demands. And sometimes the only way to forge that strength, that clarity, that unshakable belief is through seasons of uncertainty. And when you feel lost, you have a choice to make. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. You can let it convince you that you're powerless, or you can use it as the training ground to step into your power. And the way you make that shift is by refusing to let circumstances define you. Circumstances don't make your life. Decisions do. What you decide about yourself, about your future, about the meaning of this moment, that's what creates your reality. And you want to know how to turn being lost into being found? You create meaning. That's it. You decide what this season means to you. You could say, I'm lost, which means I'm failing, which means I'll never make it. Or you could say, I'm lost, which means I'm searching, which means I'm evolving. Same situation, different meaning, completely different life. The difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck is never the circumstance. It's always the meaning. And the meaning you create comes from the state you're in. If you're slumped over, breathing shallow, telling yourself stories of defeat, your brain will feed you meanings that keep you small. But if you stand tall, breathe deep, move with purpose, your brain will feed you meanings that expand your possibilities. That's why I keep saying shift your state and your world shifts with it. And when you feel lost, you must double down on your vision, even if the vision is blurry. It doesn't matter if you don't know exactly where you'll be in 5 years. What matters is that you point your energy toward growth, toward contribution, toward something that lights you up. The human spirit doesn't need certainty, it needs progress. It needs to know it's moving towards something, that today is not wasted, that you're building momentum. And so ask yourself, what's one thing I can progress in today? Not 10 things, not a complete life overhaul. One thing, maybe it's your health, maybe it's a skill, maybe it's courage in a conversation you've been avoiding. You don't climb a mountain in one leap. You do it one step at a time, and each step gives you the strength for the next. And here's the truth you can't ignore. Your life will never change until your standards change. Not your hopes, not your wishes, not your goals, your standards. When you draw a line in the sand and say, I will no longer accept this level of energy, this level of commitment, this level of living from myself, that's the moment everything shifts. Because the world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you demand of yourself. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm meant to do. And that's why you feel lost. But purpose isn't something you find written in the sky. Purpose is something you create. It's something you decide moment by moment through the way you live, through the way you serve, through the way you show up. Purpose is born when you stop making life all about yourself and start asking, how can I use what I've been through to help someone else? And think about it. The moments that gave you the most meaning in life weren't the ones where you got another possession, another title, another achievement. The deepest fulfillment came when you contributed, when you connected, when you lifted someone else. That's because purpose is linked to growth and giving. Grow beyond your limitations, give beyond yourself, and you'll never feel lost again. But here's the paradox. You can't wait until you feel found to start giving. You have to give your way into clarity. You have to grow your way into certainty. You have to... seat your way into confidence. Waiting for the feeling before you move is the trap. Movement creates the feeling, not the other way around. And while you're moving, while you're growing, while you're giving, don't forget to celebrate the small wins, because if you only celebrate the final destination, you'll spend most of your life feeling like a failure. But if you celebrate progress, the tiny shifts, the small victories, the courageous steps, you'll fuel yourself with the energy to keep going. Progress equals happiness. And the more progress you acknowledge, the more strength you'll have to push through the fog. And you see, the mind is always searching for evidence. If you tell yourself you're lost, your brain will show you all the proof that you don't know what you're doing. But if you tell yourself you're growing, your brain will start searching for evidence of growth. That's why language is so powerful. The words you use about yourself are shaping the identity you live into. Stop saying you're lost. Start saying you're learning, you're expanding, you're evolving. That shift in language changes the entire trajectory of your life. And don't underestimate the power of decision. One decision made with absolute certainty can transform everything. You don't need to know all the details. You don't need to see the whole road. But when you decide, truly decide, that you will no longer tolerate drifting, that you will find a way to move forward no matter what, that decision carries more power than 100 half-hearted attempts. Decision is destiny. And the reason most people stay lost isn't that life is too hard. It's that they never fully decide. They say, I'll try. They say, I'll see. They say, maybe someday, and someday becomes never. But the moment you say, this is it, I'm done settling, I'm done drifting, I'm done playing small, I'm done waiting for the perfect plan, that's when your life changes. And yes, fear will show up. Of course it will. Fear always shows up when you step into the unknown. But fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a compass. It points to the places where your growth lives. It points to the edge of your comfort zone, and on the other side of that edge is everything you've been waiting for. So don't run from fear. Use it. Let it fuel you. Let it remind you that you're alive, and you may not feel ready. You may not feel prepared. But let me tell you the truth. Nobody ever feels ready for their next level. Readiness is a myth. The only way to become ready is to step in, to act, to trust yourself in the process. And as you do, you discover that you are far more capable, far more resourceful, far more resilient than you ever imagined. And so if you feel lost, here's the real gift. You're in the perfect position to create something new. You're in the perfect position to let go of the old identity, the old story, the old life that no longer fits. You're in the perfect position to rise, because there's only one thing left to do. Decide to move forward even if the path isn't clear. Decide to trust yourself even if the fear is loud. Decide to embrace this season as the forge that will shape you into who you're meant to become. And perfect. I'll continue seamlessly from where the third part ended, carrying the same high-energy motivational style. This will be another 1,000 words, no headings, no conclusions, just pure flow. And decide to embrace this season as the forge that will shape you into who you're meant to become. And the moment you make that decision, something shifts inside you. Suddenly, the fog doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like preparation. You begin to realize that the uncertainty you've been cursing is actually sculpting you into someone unshakable. The challenges aren't there to crush you. They're there to carve out the strength, resilience, and clarity that comfort never could. And when you feel lost, it's easy to think life has abandoned you. But what if life hasn't abandoned you at all? What if it's simply redirecting you? What if the doors that closed, the plans that failed, the detours that appeared weren't rejection but redirection? What if this whole time life was pulling you away from what would have kept you small and guiding you toward the breakthrough you've been secretly craving? And the problem is, most people resist the redirection. They cling to the old plan, the old identity, the old certainty, even when it no longer serves them. But resistance only creates more pain. The moment you surrender, the moment you accept that this lostness is part of the journey, you take back your power. Because acceptance is not weakness, it's clarity. Acceptance allows you to stop fighting the moment and start using it. And in the way you use it is by choosing to grow. Every day, in every way, you ask yourself, how can I turn this into strength? How can I use this to sharpen my vision? How can I leverage this to become more than I was yesterday? When you frame your experience that way, the lostness becomes fuel. It stops being something you try to escape and starts being something you harness. But here's the key. You can't just think your way out of lostness. You can't just hope and wish and wait for clarity to drop into your lap. You have to act your way out. You have to do something today that interrupts the old pattern and proves to yourself that you are not powerless. Even the smallest action matters because small actions compound into unstoppable momentum. And momentum is everything. Momentum doesn't just move you forward, it changes who you believe you are. When you've been stuck for too long, you start to identify as stuck. You tell yourself, this is just who I am. I'm the lost one, the one who can't figure it out. But when you start building momentum, even in tiny ways, you begin to rewrite that story. You start saying, I'm the one who keeps moving. I'm the one who doesn't quit. I'm the one who finds a way. That shift in identity is the real prize because once your identity changes, your life follows. And let me tell you something important. Clarity doesn't come from waiting. It comes from creating. You don't sit around and stumble across your purpose like it's hidden treasure. You create it through trial, through action, through doing things that wake you up and reveal what makes you come alive. Every risk you take, every new challenge you face, every uncomfortable step you embrace is like striking flint against steel. Eventually, the spark of clarity ignites. And so when you feel lost, stop asking, what's the perfect next step? And start asking, what's the bold next step? Boldness creates breakthroughs. Perfection creates paralysis. You don't need to get it right. You need to get it moving. And as you move, you'll adjust, you'll learn, you'll refine. That's how progress is made. But here's where most people get trapped. They think being lost means they need to have the whole map before they start walking. They think they need every detail, every outcome, every guarantee. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get the whole map, you get one step. And when you take that step, the next one reveals itself. The map is built as you walk it. That's the beauty of this season. It's not about following someone else's map. It's about building your own. And while you build, you must be ruthless with your focus. Because when you're lost, distractions multiply. Doubts scream louder. Temptations to numb yourself pull harder. And if you're not careful, you'll waste your entire season of growth, scrolling, comparing, complaining, or waiting. Don't waste it. Guard your focus like your life depends on it because it does. The direction of your focus, is the direction of your future. And so put your energy where it matters. Feed your mind with content that elevates you, not drags you down. Spend time with people who see your potential, not your limits. Pour your effort into habits that build strength, not ones that drain it. What you focus on grows. So if you want a future that excites you, focus on building it right now. And in those moments when fear creeps in, and it will, you remind yourself that fear is not a wall. Fear is a signal. It's your mind telling you that you're stepping into territory that matters. Because nobody feels fear doing things that don't matter. Nobody feels fear when they're playing small. Fear shows up when you're moving towards something meaningful, something that stretches you, something that could transform you. So don't run from fear. Thank it. Use it. Let it guide you into the exact places where you're meant to grow. And while you're growing, while you're stumbling forward through the fog, don't forget to honor yourself for the courage it takes just to keep going. Do you know how many people give up? Do you know how many people quit when things get unclear, when life gets uncertain, when they don't have immediate answers? The fact that you're still searching, still fighting, still hungry, that's a victory in itself. That hunger, that drive, that refusal to settle is proof that you're not done yet. And then if you need proof that this works, just look at your past. Think back to the times you thought you were lost before, times when you thought you'd never get through it, times when you thought you didn't have the strength. And yet here you are. You made it. You survived. You grew. You found a way. That's proof that you're more powerful than the story in your head. That's proof that being lost is never permanent unless you decide it is. And so use this moment as fuel. Use it to ignite the fire that maybe has been dimmed by routine, by expectation, by fear. Let this lostness remind you that life is short, that nothing is guaranteed, that every day is a chance to rise. Don't wait for clarity to bless you. Don't wait for someone to save you. Don't wait for the path to appear. Stand up, claim your power, and decide to build the path with your own two hands. And because the truth is, you're not really lost. You're just on the edge of something new. And edges are scary, but they're also where the breakthroughs live. They're where the old you ends and the new you begins. And if you're willing to take the leap, if you're willing to trust that the wings will spread as you fall, you'll discover that this was never about being lost. It was about being reborn